Humanzee, which stands for human chimpanzee, is a topic I stumbled across recently that at first made me imagine some weird fanfic stuff going on in the depths of Twitter's swampy taint, or I thought it was some cursed creature that crawled up from the middle of the earth to wreak havoc on humanity, but upon further looking into it, it's actually super interesting and a real experiment that took place all the way back in the 1920s with Joseph Stalin. Yes, that Joseph Stalin. So my journey down the Humanzee rabbit hole began with this news article here on mirror.co.uk, and I'm basically going to be giving you the cliff notes of the whole story they tell from this news article. So obviously you got this absolutely bonkers headline that says, scientists secretly creating hybrid monkeys called Humanzees to be super soldiers. Secret projects have been ongoing for decades, with scientists trying to create a hybrid that has immense strength with an underdeveloped brain who are resilient and resistant to hunger. And they plan to perform these experiments by injecting female gorillas with human sperm, but also inseminating human women with primate sperm. I know, that is a crazy two-way street. This is some real Frankenstein's monster stuff going on here. I've heard of some crazy government experiments before, like MK Ultra and that wild zombie dog thing, but this right here is on a whole new level of crazy. Just take a second to think about how wild this experiment was. Some Russian mad scientist wakes up one day and says, you know what? I think I'm gonna go and try to play God by inseminating apes with human DNA and vice versa to produce these Humanzee henchmen to do their bidding for them. And from all the material I've read on this stuff, their main purpose was to create a creature, some humanoid thing with a lot of strength, but lacking very heavily in the brain department so they could be easily controlled and manipulated by humans. And here's some examples from the article that back up what I just said. Plans were in place to try and create a creature that was a mix between humans and other animals to supplement the armed forces, along with making a factory for transplant organs. And the passage right below this sounds like it was ripped straight out of a movie where the evil villain overthrows the government and then plans to take over the world by the most unethical means possible. Joseph Stalin ordered Soviet scientists in Russia to create a hybrid. I can't speak. I swear to God, I read at like a first grade reading level. Let's restart. Joseph Stalin ordered Soviet scientists in Russia to create a hybrid ape-man super soldier in the 1920s. He wanted the creature to be able to work under extreme conditions that would be deemed too dangerous for humans. Documents that were declassified in the 1990s appear to show that Kremlin chiefs were trying to make an unbeatable army of man-apes. That's quite literally the plot line of Planet of the Apes. And my camera shut off right when I was saying that. But that's bananas, man. And I also read that the methods they used to capture these chimps, as well as women they experimented on, were definitely not too nice and a whole lot of unethical, because they went to Africa to burn the chimps out of their trees and into cages so they could start poking them with spermy needles. And then for the women, they just straight up seized African women to start injecting them with ape sperm. But spoiler alert, none of their test subjects ever became pregnant. So luckily for the world, this army of unbeatable man-apes did not come to fruition. The artificial insemination attempts were unsuccessful and the experiments were ended. But not for good, because in the 1970s, another psychotic dude decided to put on a lab coat and he thought that made him a scientist. So he decided he wanted to make Planet of the Apes come to reality. So he began experimenting and created a mutant chimp with human characteristics, and I should also mention that none of these experiments have been authenticated with proof and whatnot, so I assume they're just using the research notes as well as the aforementioned disclosure of declassified documents. So the experiments happened, but the results are pretty unknown. Basically what I'm getting at is the experiments really did happen. They did inject apes and people with sperm to try to produce these weird chimpan-man hybrids and stuff, but the results, like I mentioned, the Humanzees, the chimpan-mans, actually haven't been documented as real. But back to the supposed human-chimp hybrid they created, they named him Oliver, which was the picture you seen on the website a moment ago, and I'll pop it back up here. But they said he had much less body hair than other animals, but was much more intelligent. So you heard it here first, folks. The more body hair you have, the more stupider you are. But it was later proven in 1996 that Oliver had 48 chromosomes, which pretty much means he's not a hybrid. He was just a quirky monkey that was balding and walked on two legs. But if you thought that's where this madness came to an end, you gotta remember that Russia isn't the only wacky country in the world that likes to do these crazy experiments. China decided they would take a swing at creating a human-chimp hybrid, and their goal was that it would retain the strength of a chimp but be capable of speech. So, in 1976, they began crossbreeding attempts, and when asked what they wanted these creatures for, they replied practically the same thing as Russia: to do mining and heavy agricultural work. And they also wanted to use them to explore dangerous environments like outer space and the deepest parts of the ocean. Basically, they wanted all these hybrids as expendable toys to do anything that they didn't want to do themselves. And that's all the information I could find on the Chinese experiments. I don't know if they ever claimed to have succeeded on one or anything that came from that, but now we're moving on to the most recent attempt of creating a Humanzee, which took place in 2019, only 3 years ago. I had to count that up on my fingers. I was like, 1, 2, 3. It's 3 years ago. And of course, it happened in the other crazy superpower of the world, the good old US of A. And they supposedly succeeded in creating a human-monkey hybrid, but it only lived for 19 days, which was probably pure hell for that thing. But after that, there's no really reports of what happened, if they continued or whatnot. But knowing the US government, they probably are still going at their secretive monkey business because they don't like to tell us much. And that's pretty much all the history behind this freaky Humanzee experiment. Everybody had their go at it, but like I mentioned before, to date, all attempts have been proven not successful, meaning an ape uprising seems much less likely than when I first began looking into this and feeling very existential. I didn't want to see apes running around with machine guns and whatnot mowing down my loved ones. I don't think anyone would want to see that. And also, I didn't mention any names in this video, like the names of the scientists and whatnot, mainly because I didn't feel like trying to pronounce Russian and Chinese names, so can you really blame me for that? But yeah, nonetheless, this was some really weird stuff that intrigued me enough that I had to make a video on it, even though it's not my normal type of content. But yeah, other than that, that's going to be it for this one. I'll catch you next time. Peace out.